Hello and welcome to the Tifo Football Podcast. I am JJ Bull, and joining me today on the Tifo Football Podcast is the one and only Kaya Kaynak.
Big energy.
He was told to be energetic. I'm going to read what's written down. Flinging himself from the trebuchet of the Athletic newsroom into the Tifo Football Podcast Fortifications, its senior editor, Amitai Winehouse.
Hello.
That's a reference to civilization, isn't it?
No, well, maybe that or the last time I was on here when we talked about flaming trebuchet shots.
So Warwick Castle callback, I believe.
Is that what it is? I only know what trebuchet is because of civilization. Because it's like a giant catapult.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we also spoke about Civ on that episode.
Was I there?
Most episodes. No, you weren't there. And obviously didn't listen back, so yeah. Thank you.
No, why would I be listening to the podcast? And making his Tifo Football Podcast debut. And what a debut it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's fellow news hound. The body of a dog, the mind of a newsman, aka news editor, Luke Bosher.
That is very kind. Thank you. That's why there's no evidence of the dog legs either. It's just below the table.
You can change your appearance. You can confuse our minds so that you are a dog. We see only you in human form. Well, we talked about a lot of things on today's show, didn't we? Yes, so many things. Do you remember all the things?
No, but thankfully Steve's written them down.
Yes, Liverpool lose again. We talk about how their squad isn't necessarily set up for this season's Premier League. Oh, is it? And then we see some nice things about Brentford, who, like the long balls, is using Pro Evo button configuration the only way to play other football games. And Amitai is correct, it is the only way. So you can skip to that bit and find out the answer is yes. What would happen if every single Premier League club were managed by a cat? Are things settling down well for Manchester United? We talked about that, didn't we? And what are the biggest seagulls in the world? Did we decide where that was?
We didn't come to a conclusion.
Did we not?
No.
left that hanging.
Oh, well.
A few contenders were there, but not really definitive.
The mystery lives on.
Yeah.
You decide.
One for the comments.
One for the comments. Where's the biggest seagull you've seen? Then there's the separation game, which I enjoyed this week. Some lovely routes. Someone won it. Someone very special won that one. With two Chelsea-focused people on the pod. We spoke a lot about them and how they live within the donut of sadness. What we think of Enzo Maresca. Are Chelsea good? Because sometimes you don't know. You can't tell. It's a results-based game, isn't it?
Yeah. We tried to answer it, and I think we were like, we don't know. That was the conclusion.
Unlike the Seagulls. And Hearts are top of the league in Scotland. Would you believe it? We talk about those Edinburgh boys and their impresarios, which is a word which means something musical.
Shall I get a definition up?
Absolutely. No, I looked it up a minute ago, and it's something to do with someone who's in the artistic world.
It's a person who organises and often finances concerts, plays or operas.
There we go, you see?
So actually bang on for the Bill Kenwright reference that comes later in the podcast, yeah.
Because he was a playwright.
Yeah, he was an impresario, had his own theatre company, etc., as well as being a lifelong Evertonian, custodian, etc. Yeah.
But the real drama was here with Points Are Bad, which is not here. It's, of course, on for hiatus for a few weeks. So that's the show this week. Had a great time. Debutant. Amitai's here. Luke turned into a dog halfway through, did you?
Yeah.
Sniffing out the news like a hound.
Yeah.
News hound. Where else to begin than Liverpool's collapse in the Premier League? They lost 3-2 to Brentford, which is obviously not good. And the reigning Premier League champions have now lost 5 of their past 6 fixtures in a run of games that some of us believed were very winnable. Oh yeah, that's me. I thought they would win most of them, but it turns out...
You thought they'd win all of them, is what I can remember you predicting.
Yeah, but I say things to try and get reactions out of Joe, mostly. I don't mean half things I say. Luke, I believe you watched this game. What is the story of the game? How did Brentford beat Liverpool?
It was a really weird game, I think, because it felt like watching goals that Liverpool have conceded throughout this season where, you know, their defensive line is too high at times. You know, I'm talking about the Kevin Schade goal and, you know, it's an easy ball in behind, I think, from Damsgaard. And then, you know, Schade just kind of finishes very coolly one-on-one, you know, fair play to him. And then set plays as well. You know, the Michael Coyote long throw, I think, has been spoken about a lot this season. He's a really interesting player.
I mean, that might be a good place to start even because I saw Arne Slot say that they've been training like all week, or at least the day before the game, or the last training session they had, they spent all the time focused on defending long throws. And yet, Coyote hurls it towards the front post.
I think it was the. He was in the box. He was in the box. You know. But yeah, I think this is like This has been a theme of Brentford for a while. I think and obviously previous years Keith Andrews has been the set piece coach, right? But they also, and the thing that makes it impressive, or not impressive, but the thing that kind of makes sense about it is that Chris O'Hare, I think it is that wins the first header, or is there or thereabouts, and he's playing left back for them. But previously in his career, you'll know from when he was at Celtic, right? He was a centre back primarily, but he's playing right back and left back, and that's how they're getting this height into the box, right? Because they've got Vandenberg, I think, and Nathan Collins. Collins is, as we know, from his time at Burnley and Wolves, is a massive threat in the air. But to have those kind of three players, plus you've got Igor, Thiago, as well as other aerial threats, it becomes very difficult to kind of, even if you're doing it zonally or man to man, it becomes very difficult to kind of snuff out all the danger. So it feels likely that they're always going to kind of win the first ball, and then it's Dango Ouattara who's there for the knockdown and finishes very easily because he's about 5 yards out. So they're sort of playing the odds really. But and then when they defend, because Ayer's not very quick, right? They don't defend really high up and leave him exposed against Mohamed Salah, or if it's on the other side, it'd be whoever's playing on the left. So it just makes sense what they're doing. And yeah, Liverpool, as we were kind of talking about before, just seem to really struggle from set pieces, which is weird when you look at their team, right? Because I think you associate.
Yeah, why do you think it is they struggle from them?
I think right now in this specific moment, not to dig them out too much, but I think they miss Alisson, and I'm not sure Mamardashvili is. Well, I'm pretty sure Mamardashvili is not at the level of Alisson, right? And I think they miss that kind of. I think he's a bit more of a dominant box presence. And to be honest, going back to that Sharda goal, I think when Sharda was running through 1-on-1. If he's facing Alisson, I think you have a bit more okay, Alisson could come up big here as he has done many times before. As Mamardashvili is a bit more of a normal goalkeeper, right? Yeah. And he just kind of Sharda doesn't really do a lot.
Yeah. And
then Mamardashvili kind of dives one way, Sharda finishes the other way. And yeah, I think going back to the set pieces, I think that's an issue. I think Konate and Van Dijk, for whatever reason, are not playing at a level that we've come to expect from them over previous years. And as I kind of said there, that's only two of them. There are the two aerial threats, right? You look at the rest of their team that started, they're not getting a lot of kind of height out of the rest of the lineup. So, if it's just those two, and then you've got, 3 or 4 Brentford players that are threatening, then again, the odds are stacked in Brentford's favour, right?
Well, it's interesting because the very first goal is thrown, they practiced all the time. The ball goes over. It's Ekitike is the guy at the front near post trying to header it away, and then you've got Van Dijk's just behind him. But in the Stramash, you've got Connor Bradley, who's not he's not involved in that bit. Yeah. He's a bit smaller, but then Trent Alexander-Arnold, I guess, was like that as well. And you got Kerkez as the one who loses the man at the back post. I feel like losing Andy Robertson from that Liverpool backline is important. Do you agree?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important because Kerkez has struggled so much, right? And they're playing Kerkez in a way that doesn't really seem to suit his strengths, in the sense that they're sort of asking him to do a bit of what Robertson did last season, coming in. And Kerkez, as we know from Bournemouth, is kind of a bombing, overlapping left back who is really good at that when you ask him to do that. But the problem is they've got Jeremy Frimpong, or I know he was injured for this game, or Connor Bradley or Dominic Szoboszlai on the other side. So Kerkez, just for the sake of balance, is having to do a lot more defending, and it looks like he's struggling for confidence right now. And he doesn't look confident when he's in duels against sort of opposition defenders, and he looks really physically lost, I would say, in a lot of them. But I think he's sort of struggling with a lot of what the whole Liverpool team is struggling with, which is teams are kind of just going long against them now. And what Luke was kind of saying there, and it's Liam Thum did a really interesting piece where I've got the stats in front of me, which I'll refer to, where last season teams in sort of from goal kicks went long against Liverpool just 41% of the time. This season it's 74% of the time, so it's nearly double. And it does seem like that's almost a cheat code that teams seem to have found against Liverpool. Whereas if you go direct and just play long against them, they haven't found a way to deal with that yet. And Arne Slot kind of referenced it in his own press conference after the game. And it's a real problem for Liverpool, because if you look at the makeup of the squad, I kind of think any of us here in this room could have told you that was going to be a problem at the start of the season, which is what's so confusing about their issues, because they had a massive window and everyone says, wow, they won the window and they spent loads of money on great attacking players. But the defence did look really vulnerable. And if you look at the top teams, their competitors for the title, City, Arsenal, etc., they've got a lot of height in there. Brentford have a lot of height in their team in set pieces. And the way the league's gone this season, it's a very set piece sort of focused league. And Liverpool kind of feel like they've not adapted to that. And that's a massive issue for them because they're conceding lots and lots of goals. When you're conceding almost 2 goals every game, you need to score 3 every game.
But isn't that good for the beauty of the game, not focusing on the set pieces? Because everyone's got massive lads now. And I like that it's got all attacking sexy players.
Yeah, listen, I like an attacking sexy player as much as the next man. But I think if you're a Liverpool fan who's watching that every week and watching your team concede goals to maybe the bigger, uglier boys, but still conceding goals, it doesn't matter who you're conceding goals to, it's still an issue, right? And I guess that's what Liverpool have been struggling with all season. And it's going to continue to be a problem. I can't see how this fixes itself soon, which is why it feels like more of a crisis than like something you can write off as like a one-off, Liverpool are in a bad run or a bad moment. Like all these problems feel unfixable with the players they have now. And I don't know. So? I feel like I don't see the players in that team who can, I don't see a left back. I know you said Andy Robertson, maybe he'd be better, but I don't see many players who can come into the team and fix the issues they're having with direct play and long balls. Van Dijk has been better in the air in the past, but he's 32, 33 now, like exposing him to those long balls. He's still
amazing.
He's still a very good player, but exposing him to those long balls every single game. And we were talking about this with Amitai a bit, like the lack of depth in their back line means that he's coming to do it every single game. So, and Konate's looked a bit shaky in some games as well. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't see how they necessarily stop this rot unless Arne Slot makes some big changes, which in the past 6 games, he hasn't really shown he's that willing to do, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting because what they could have done is played someone like Joe Gomez, who's a big lad at the back. Could have had Andy Robertson, who's a captain, a leader, an organizer, the kind of character that you need to deal with that. But maybe that's not all why the long balls thing is a thing. And it is a thing because there's an Opta stat where they've faced more long balls than any team in the Premier League I saw. Whether that's still true, I think it is because Brentford they like a long ball. But you just mentioned in the transfer window, what if they'd signed Marc Guehi? Would that have fixed everything, Amitai?
It's quite hard to say, isn't it? Because I think for me, whenever I've watched Liverpool this season, the thing that is stark is Konate and Van Dijk just being so much worse, to me anyway, than they have been.
Do you really think so?
Yeah, I think that Konate was the obvious one at the start of the season. I think there was a run of maybe 2 or 3 games where I was like, Van Dijk looks really... I was going to say weak. Weak's probably the wrong word, but like he's just not the same player he was, or it doesn't feel like he's the same player he was. Yeah, in that I remember a period probably 2-3 years ago, you'd watch Liverpool, a long ball would come, Van Dijk would inevitably clear it, he'd win the ball, he'd bring it down, he'd pass it. It just felt like that. It feels like there's been a few moments when he's been exposed this season, and that's a bit, like for example, that goal against Chelsea, which I think a lot of people made a lot of like hay out of. I don't necessarily think he did anything particularly wrong there, but it was one of those moments that stand out when a defender isn't playing well. Yeah. And I thought he hasn't been playing well, and that was I think that was a good example of a moment when he wasn't. I think Guehi's an interesting one because if they'd have flipped the window, done him earlier, and for example, if Isak hadn't have come in, there's probably a good question as to whether there'd be a stronger team now. Like Isak feels now. Isak or Wirtz or wherever it might be feels like the indulgent signing. Whereas at the time it was like, no, Liverpool really need a number 9. Like that is an area of the squad they're weak. Now it's like, okay, Guehi was the signing they needed to make. They needed another centre-back.
But when would he play? Because he plays on the left, right? And Van Dijk, you can't drop him. And then Konate is the right-sided centre-back. So then if you had Guehi, I guess he could go on the right side and replace Konate, but he was linked with like Real Madrid.
Yeah, but I guess the thing is that it's the difference between in the middle of July. Yeah, did Liverpool need to replace Konate? No. At the end of October, do Liverpool need to replace Konate in that team? Like, yes, they do. Like that's the change that could benefit them, and they can't do it. That's the issue.
What if it wasn't the centre backs and it was the structure around them that is leaving them exposed, exactly like you just said?
So I thought it was quite interesting when you were talking about the Premier League generally. It almost feels as if the year after Arne Slot has won the Premier League has shifted, not because of him, but because this is the way it was going anyway, with Arsenal dominating because they've got so much more physical and teams have clearly latched onto that, and it goes all the way down the league. The Premier League has shifted at a point where Liverpool can't adapt because they've gone for sexy technical players and it's managing to expose them every week, basically. So it's almost as if it's not that Slot is blameless in that, but it's as if the Premier League has just all collectively decided we're all going to go like long, we're going to have big physical players, we're going to benefit on set pieces, and all of those things don't work. For
Do you
this
like
Liverpool
it?
Time.
Do you like the set pieces?
Yeah, I love it. I watched far too much Championship football and League One football during my teenage years. I have always been like a long throw addict. Like my university day football, not Football Manager, FIFA playing was like, right, who's my long throw specialist? Let's get the ball into the box.
In FIFA?
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah, and also on FIFA, I mean, am I going to expose something in EA Sports FC?
Please do.
Well, people people online don't realise that you can't be offside from a throw-in. So if you just select the player that you're throwing to and make them go way
How do you make them throw it that far on FIFA?
You just have someone who can take long throws.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What's the button? X?
Circle is long. Well, I play on Pro Evo buttons. So circle or square.
That's the only way to play.
Yeah. I'm dating myself.
So Amitai had already worked out the meta for both FIFA, and now people in the Premier League seem to have figured that out as well. But I am told, Luke, that you were in awe of Brentford.
Well, I think
awestruck by them.
I think it's kind of expectation versus reality, really. I think I was quite low on Brentford coming into the season, having lost, Thomas Frank, who I think is a really, really good coach, and then obviously Brian Mbumo and Johan Visser. But appointing Keith Andrews felt like very safe, kind of very low cost. But this is a guy that his coaching experience. I think he did a bit at MK Dons just after he retired, and then has been at Republic of Ireland previously, and then obviously doing the set pieces at Brentford. And he's kind of come in, and they kind of look the same. Really,
I mean, who better for the new meta than a set piece
exactly. Well, exactly. It's like Brentford have seen into Amitai's future, and they've cast the right guy. But they're doing so well.
We're getting a call now. Someone wants to hire Amitai. At Leeds, you're going to be there soon. Yeah.
And it's a trope that is kind of obvious with Brentford and Brighton in particular. But their recruitment as well is just, to me, is really outstanding. Because
who stood out this season?
I think there's two or three. I think Igor Thiago for me. I think it's only Semenyo and Haaland have scored more Premier League goals, which feels like quite weird. No, I think he's got a couple of penalties in there, including the one against Liverpool. And he's a weird one because they kind of bought him to replace Tony, and then he got injured and was out for the whole season. And then Johan Visser ended up playing the whole season as the main man. They've sold him for big money, and then it's kind of like Thiago finally gets fit over summer, has had this year to bed in, kind of get to know England and Brentford and what he wants, and then he started the season really well. And then the other one, kind of attacking wise, Kevin Schade, who scored, and we've kind of already mentioned him. He's been playing at I think a really high level for the whole of 2025. And again, it was sort of another one that when they brought him from Freiburg, I think he had a bit of a slow start, was kind of in and out of the team, kind of left wing, right wing, played a little bit up front, I think, as well. But this season has been his pace, I think, in a weird way, he kind of reminds me of like a right-footed Leroy Sané. Maybe just because he's German as well. I don't know. But that sort of electric pace, like when he's kind of, for the second goal, when he, sprinting away from... Konate's no slouch, right? Yeah. But he just kind of breezes really past Konate and then one-on-one finishes really well. I think he's kind of, to me, if I was looking at Brentford's next big sale, which is kind of how these kind of clubs stay kind of sustainable in the Premier League, I think he's the one because he's so exciting. And I think he'll probably end the season with relatively high goals and assist numbers. And then Michael Coyote, I think he's more than just a long throw merchant. I think they signed him from Fiorentina in January.
Lovely right wing back.
Yeah, exactly. Made it permanent in the summer, and he just hit the ground running. Was
he playing on the right? Was he on the left? Because he got Hickey back as well, didn't he?
He plays on the right more.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I think he's so dangerous from open play as well. I mean, just his crossing ability is really good. He had a couple in the second half. One that went to Thiago, I think that he sort of fluffed a little bit, kind of undercutting my previous point about how good Thiago is. But, and defensively as well, he's very physical. He's like that he's not the tallest fullback, but he's one that snaps into tackles. I think if you're in a 50-50 with Coyote, I think you're going to know about it in the morning. And yeah, I think he's another one that's it's not like a, where do they find these players? So because they signed him from Fiorentina, that's not that, and they signed Dango Ouattara for 50 million from Bournemouth, right, to replace Brian Mbumo.
They went to FM Scout.
Yeah,
they looked at the highest rated potential players.
Yeah, but these guys, and they just sort of the whole team is just very well put. It kind of looking at Liverpool's team right now, and it doesn't quite make sense. Where does
that's a good point.
Where does Wirtz fit in? Are you playing Isak and Ekitike or Ekitike, the fullbacks? Whereas you look at Brentford's team, and it kind of makes sense for the way they want to set up. And I think it shows there's a plan above just the head coach, because it's been such a seamless transition from Thomas Frank into Keith Andrews that the way they want to play and the way they want to recruit is not necessarily beholden to kind of one individual. I think it shows there's a plan in place. So yeah, really impressed by them so far.
Very well put, I thought.
Maybe another player who's slightly gone under the radar as well is Jordan Henderson.
Yeah.
I think he's been a fantastic signing for
You
them.
need those characters.
You do. Someone said this.
I've become, as there's like a million different tactics geniuses on Twitter who know far more than I do now. I find myself becoming more football man.
Yeah. Like the Premier League.
Characters and leaders. Yeah.
Like the Premier League's going towards these long throws and set pieces, and JJ, you're becoming more football man. When Jordan Henderson has been the football man that Brentford needed. In terms of, like, obviously they lost Norgard over the summer, who's massive leader and big like character in the dressing room, and he's just like come in. And to be honest, when I saw the Jordan Henderson signing, I wasn't wowed by it. If anything, it was the opposite. I thought that's
what's the opposite of wowed.
The opposite, I suppose you can't even sort of spell wow backwards because that's just wow. Underwhelmed. That feels an underwhelming term to describe the opposite of wow.
It was a bit meh.
Meh is the exact three-letter word I was looking for.
It didn't feel like a Brentford signing.
No.
That was the like, when have they ever signed someone you've heard of? I guess it's probably him and
instead of going to FM Scout, they just went to Football Manager, free agents, international experience.
Yeah.
That's it.
So it felt like a weird one.
Yeah.
But these people are important in football teams, and like I guess maybe it's a slight thing about getting slightly older is you kind of realize that whole thing of like, oh no, you just have loads of really good players, you play the right tactics and you win. It doesn't actually work, because like if you work in an office and you're surrounded by people who are really talented, but the office culture is terrible, like it's not going to be a very successful business, because some people will decide to slack off, some people won't do this. If you're in an office surrounded by talented people or like semi-talented people, but everyone's like really highly motivated and there's a culture of like doing the work well, you're probably going to end up with a more successful business. I imagine Jordan Henderson is Brentford's person in the office who like makes everyone work harder, basically.
Or if you're on like a podcast with a sort of tyrannical host who goes away for a week and everything sort of seems to fall into place and seems to be going a lot more smoothly. Yeah. It's kind of how I feel.
How much are you going to pay me to cut that for you?
Leave it in.
Well, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
I found this quote from Pierre van Hooijdonk this last couple of days. It's related because obviously like Slot's now bad apparently, and Keith Andrews is now good. You know, this is the results have decided this this week. But there was a quote from 2016 in 442 where he says, "If you were to change all the managers in the league for cats, at the end of the season, there will still be one champion and 3 will get relegated. Does that mean the cat who is champion is fantastic and the 3 who got relegated are?"
It's genuinely like a valid point in that I am increasingly convinced that what people think football managers actually do is probably like far beyond what they actually do on a week. I
100% agree with this. And when I did the coaching badges, like you realize it so much more because you were like, how would you actually get this across?
Yeah.
And you start thinking like the individual, same within the office. If someone's got something going on in the background you don't know about, you know, some people are struggling with certain things at certain times. Some people just have stuff going on. There's so much to management that you don't think about in these things.
And also, like, I think in most management teams, when a group of coaches move from club to club to club, I wonder whether the person who sits in the press conference and therefore has the managerial title or head coach, whatever it might be, they might just be the person who's best at presenting themselves in public rather than like actually the leader of the group, or they might be the leader and therefore they're the one with that title. But like someone else is better at coaching players, someone else is better at dealing with the recruitment team, someone else is better at making decisions in match. So then what does the manager actually do out of that? Well, they sit in the press conference and come across well.
Yeah,
basically.
It's my point in trying to... Well, I've been thinking about it loads because I always think the assistant manager is really important because oftentimes they're the bridge between the manager and the players. So sometimes you'll get a younger manager. Remember Mourinho at Tottenham, he got that, the young Portuguese
João
I can't remember his name, but I think I'm sure you remember who he is as a young coach.
He did his badges in Wales. That's what I remember about him.
A lot of them do that. He did in Scotland as well, And Sacramento. So that you bring in someone who can maybe be more aligned with the players than you are, so you can separate yourself a bit. And it makes you think of like Steven Gerrard at Rangers. He had Michael Beale doing a lot of the tactics and running the first team coaching. Alex Ferguson famously went through loads of different assistant managers who would help change what you have. And you've got even... I
think it's Carlo Ancelotti and his son, right? That's the one that they talk about a lot, where Davide is like super important to like the actual tactics, right? What you were saying. And Carlo's just the kind of... He brings it all together.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. There's a nice segue into Man United 4, Brighton 2. because you've got Ruben Amorim, a manager who's been getting pelters from everywhere, and then you've got Fabian Hertzler, who seems to have gone under the radar, but Brighton are weird this year.
Yeah.
But United have built on their momentum in the Premier League with their third consecutive victory. They're back. And this put United in the lofty heights of fourth. I am reading what Steve's written here, just in case you think I've hit my head. In the lofty heights.
Are you implying that I write like I'm concussed?
The lofty heights of fourth. No, it would be if I started talking like this. If I was to start speaking in what's the word, like a soliloquy. If I was talking to people, because I don't make sense often. This place United in the lofty heights. When's the last time you said that in real world? Of fourth at one point over the weekend. But as more results filtered through, they now sit sixth, which is not bad for a supposed crisis club. Kaya, you watched this game. What stood out? What happened?
I think the feels like the big difference between Manchester United of a few weeks ago and Manchester United now is they seem to have calmed down in terms of the vibe around the club. They just seem a lot more confident in what they're doing, which I think is playing a huge part.
I agree.
The tactics have changed, as I'm sure we'll get onto a little bit, but the presence of Lomans, I think we discovered it's pronounced last week. He has calmed people down sort of in the back line, and the defence seem a lot more secure in what they're doing. It does feel like Cunha and Burma are starting to click in a way that they weren't. I to be honest, like I felt they've been really good all season, Cunha and Burma. Yeah. I think like they've just maybe been unlucky. Like for example, the Man City game, I thought Brian Burma was one of the best players on the pitch. Just Donnarumma made a fantastic save from his volley, and like Burma could have easily had a couple of goals that game. And this was Cunha's first goal at Old Trafford, but he's been out injured and has had chances where he could have scored more goals beyond that. And I think the signings Man U made over the summer felt like they fitted into what Amorim was trying to do. And you could argue, did they make enough of them? And I think there still are questions over their midfield, although Casemiro was, I think, really good over the weekend. But they just seem a lot more slick in what they're trying to do. And I think the style of football that Amorim's trying to impose on the team and is still trying to get going is really difficult to do if players aren't feeling themselves. But it does look like the Man United players are now starting to get there. And it was interesting towards the end of the game, obviously, going from 3-0 to 3-2 quite late on, it can go another way, particularly in a team who are struggling for confidence. But to be honest, watching it actually felt more likely that Man U would get fourth on the counter as they ended up doing than Brighton scoring an equaliser. I think that speaks a lot to how they're slowly finding their feet. And there will be more hiccups along the way this season, but it does feel like a little bit like they're finding their feet and just the systems are starting to work. And I think maybe we're finally starting to see the benefit of the weeks in between games and having a little bit more time on the training ground to work on what they're doing.
Yeah, I wondered if it's that some of it. Because one of the things I noticed in this game especially is like United out of possession, so aggressive, pushing high. Because Brighton were just kept trying to play out. And they looked awful, Brighton on the ball. I was watching it in the pub and there were some Brighton fans watching it who were groaning every 2 minutes as another pass went straight to a United player. But it's a lot of that system, like players following each other man to man so that no one can play out, is what made Brighton look so poor. Yeah.
And I think the second goal, right, the Casemiro goal comes from that where, is it Ruta who loses the ball? And is that the second or the first goal? It might be the first goal.
I don't remember.
But basically, Ruta gets pressed and Man United's high press has caused Brighton, like you said, lots of problems. And Brighton were made to look very ordinary. They're actually quite a good team at passing out from the back. But these kind of pressing things and these triggers do take lots of time to work on. The time that Amorim didn't have last season, and also there was a few injuries in the team and they were trying to focus wholeheartedly on just getting back into the Champions League by winning the Europa League. And when you're doing that, it's kind of all about results. And we saw that a little bit in the way they played in the Europa League latter stages. But I think this season, the changes are starting to come slowly but surely.
And he's definitely making changes as well. This is the thing,
I think so.
Because there was this thing where he said he wouldn't adapt, but I think he's changed loads. And especially since Brentford even, you can see like one of the things I kept seeing was this 5-2-3 shape. So there's so much space between it. And now it seems much different. Like they were collapsing into a 5-4-1. But whatever, it's man-to-man marking. But it just seems so much more organised. It's almost like they're committed to it more. Like the players have fully bought in all of a sudden or something. Maybe I'm totally wrong with this.
No, I agree. It's a lot more fluid as well. Like you guys did a really good video a couple of weeks ago on the Athletic FC podcast about how Crystal Palace played the back five formation, and people were saying, it's the same formation, why isn't it working for Man U? But it does look, they switch within games. I noticed they're switching in between back fours and back fives, and they suddenly have more players in midfield and more players up front, depending on where the ball is.
And that's the idea Amorim's always said.
100%.
It's not that same sort of thing. And it just seems when they get into final third, they've got more players around them, so they have options and things. I thought they looked really impressive. Yeah. One player that especially has been standing out, I think, in his work up front is Benjamin Šeško. What do you think of Benjamin Šeško? Either of you two? Who likes him? Neither.
I think he speaks for quite an interesting thing Man U have done in the summer just gone, is that they've probably signed players that suit what Amorim needs, rather than. I think Man U are quite an indulgent team in terms of who they used to sign, and they used to sign players that like were exciting on paper and name wise.
I was just jumping quickly because like in recent weeks there's been loads of people going like, they should have signed midfielders, they're idiots. But now they've won a few games, it's like the narrative changes, which is obviously what happens.
Yeah, I think there's that thing though of like that front three, unless you have Mbeumo and Cunha, doesn't work. Unless you have a striker that can kind of do what Šeško does, it doesn't work. And that's probably what we saw last season, where they really struggled because they were trying to craft like a really weird squad to like Amorim's very like
with Højlund up front.
Very specific style of playing football, and it just didn't work at all. I think the one thing I would say is that I'm always quite like my thing with Man U is that they've had a lot of like false dawns over the last 12 years since Ferguson left, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, something I can't.
Yes.
It's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time. It's a long time, and there've been a lot of false dawns. I do think that if the plan is that they probably need to do this thing where they stick with one manager for a while and build a team out over a number of windows that suit them. The question is always, is this the right manager with which to do it? If they continue this, then Amorim probably has like a good chance of that. But Šeško is an example of a player that suits what he wants to do, and therefore he's the right signing for them, even if like he's not someone who scored 40 goals in the Premier League previously. You know?
Yeah.
It's also it's kind of a smart signing.
Yeah.
Maybe, this is, people kind of forget now that he's at Man United, but he was, very strongly linked to Arsenal for a couple of years. Newcastle kind of...
He definitely comes up on FM Scout.
Well, yeah, exactly. Newcastle look at him as well, I think. So this is not just like a player that like Man United have gone, oh God, that's going to change the game for us. It's like, it feels like there's, although he is a very known sort of wonder kid, it feels like they've put some thought behind it. And I think he kind of allows them to play a bit differently. I think when you play Cunha and Mbeumo together, you're obviously going to be massively dangerous in transition, right? Because they're both really good ball carriers. They're both really fast. They both can finish really, really well. And Šeško, not quite as quick, but he kind of also then allows you to kind of play, long balls up to him. I think I saw in that game he won kind of 6 of 11 aerial duels, right? Which is not a fantastic, percentage, but I also think 6 of 11, they were like peppering him.
Does anyone else just think of like jewels when you hear jewels? Like you're collecting the shiny jewels, like in Zelda. So
I thought you were going to go medieval, like a,
Oh no, I think of like JEWELS,
as in like run the.
Yes, I guess so. But like in if you have like in old cartoons, they would always be trying to steal the jewels.
Yeah. So basically, Šeško's been running around the pitch breaking pots like in Zelda and getting 100%.
Yeah, that poor shopkeeper in Zelda.
Oh God, yeah. Any shopkeeper in any video game, it's like the economy just doesn't work for them, does it?
Do you know like the simulation theory that we all live in a simulation? So like in Zelda is its own world and stuff, and those NPCs. What's an NCP?
Oh, that's the car park.
Yeah. So imagine you work in a car park in the game. I can't remember what I was going to say there. Something about smashing pots with jewels in them. But yes, Šeško winning lots of jewels is good. United now up to 6th, which means they're level with Manchester City, which means they are as good as Manchester City now, doesn't it?
Yes, I think so. That's how the league table works, right?
That's
100%.
Right. Yeah, I saw something. There's like this predictive model where it's like Liverpool are now less likely to win the league, but now they dropped down a few points. Well, we should do the separation game now, but as Steve's written, unless you really want to talk about seagulls, because I do. Because when I went to Brighton last time, there's hundreds of seagulls like everywhere, and I'm from Aberdeen, and there's a lot of seagulls there. There's a lot of them, and they're large, and the Aberdeen Football Club employ a hawk too. They don't pay the hawk. Maybe they, I guess in a way.
How do they employ it?
Without, is he got like a contract?
How does he come? How does he know when to show up for work?
I do mean a literal hawk. I don't mean like this, like a superhero called the Hawk, who turns up and is like, "I'm here now. What do you need of me?" It's a hawk and the hawk goes around and it scares off the seagulls because they fly all around the pitch.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them, but they're very large. And I wanted to ask you, what city you've seen the largest seagull in? Because you would remember.
Yeah. A seagull stole my ice cream in Padstow once.
They do that?
When I was a kid, and that really freaked me out. I'm still kind of quite traumatized by that. I wasn't as big as I am now. I feel like.
What would you do now? Do you ever think back? You were like, I would have done this.
Yeah,
this time.
karate chop straight to the face of that seagull. No, I don't know. I think I probably would panic just as much now as I did then, to be honest. But they're scary. They've got big wingspans. They're scary. I don't like seagulls.
That's Padstow Cornwall, yeah?
Yes, Padstow and Cornwall,
so
sorry.
that's one nomination for vicious, maybe, rather than large.
Yes.
Have you seen a large seagull?
Large? I mean, they all look large compared to London pigeons. I mean,
they are different birds.
Yeah, but they are. Well, to Kaya's point, I think you forget how big they are.
Yeah,
but I don't know. To me, seagulls, I don't know about large, but I find them incredibly annoying because when I walk to work, so I walk to and from the office, there are like multiple people that feed the seagulls, and I have to then walk past like all the seagulls who are then just like crowding around all these breadcrumbs, and I have to like fight my way through, using my bag as a shield.
Well, like
basically, yeah,
Streets of Rage style scene.
Exactly. Honestly, there's
a turkey underneath the bin.
Somewhat traumatizing. I remember there's big seagulls in Lisbon. I think I remember when I went there. I remember thinking, being surprised, but then I was like, well, it's on the coast, so that makes sense that there'd be seagulls there.
Lisbon's Sporting Lisbon have an eagle that flies around the stadium, right?
Yeah.
So they're a bit similar to the hawk.
Maybe Benfica, I think it was.
Benfica, sorry.
Yeah.
Benfica have that, and maybe that's why are they employing the hawk, the eagle to counteract the seagulls? Maybe is there an origin?
Have any of you ever played Streets of Rage before?
Are
you all too young?
No, I'm aware of Streets. I think I'm just about old enough to know of and maybe have played Streets of Rage.
This is wild. Do you know this happens, right? As you get older, and then like I don't even know how much older I am than you, but that's crazy to me. You don't know that. Anyway, there was a bit like so when I said there's a turkey underneath the bin, I realized that no one seemed to know what I was talking about.
No, that was how you powered up your characters, right?
Well, because your health bar would go down, and then you would, when you're punching things, you'd punch a bin, and there's a turkey underneath it. And I was just thinking, who thought that was a good way to get? How would you have time to eat a turkey that you found underneath a bin?
Fully cooked one as well, underneath a bin.
Who's leaving that there?
Great.
Yeah. Anyway, if you find a fully cooked turkey underneath a bin, eat it. It makes you better. Separation game. It's time for the separation game.
Okay, now you want to play, don't you, JJ? Normally the host of the show sets it off. And of course, Luke and Amitai, you haven't played separation game in anger on the show before, have you?
No.
So just to explain, because we also have the via rule now as well. So it's a game of joining player A to player B. And what we now do is you have to go via another player who will mention. So this week, we're going from the defender Mike Williamson. To the defender Michael Keane, currently playing Michael Keane.
Okay.
Via Rui Costa.
Rui Costa?
The legendary Portuguese playmaker Rui
I
Costa.
used to love Rui Costa.
Oh my God.
So Mike Williamson to Michael Keane via Rui Costa. So JJ, can you give us a break, please?
Well, we'll be back with the separation game after the break. We're back in the room. Steve, I feel like I may have been able to do this, but I might do some double checking. You can hear the furious frantic of
still going, isn't
tippy,
it? Yeah.
tappy typing.
Enjoy the fusion. Okay,
take it away, Steve.
Go around the room. How many connections do we have? JJ, how many have you done it in?
I believe I have, out with Mike Williamson and Michael Keane, I've got 1, 2, and Rui Costa, I've got 3.
Okay, JJ, you've got 3 connections. Kaya, how many have you got?
6.
Okay, that's going to be a fun leisurely route for us. Luke, how many connections?
So not counting, sorry.
Yeah, so Mike Williamson, Rui Costa and Michael Keane are not included.
Okay, then other players, yes. I think I've got 4.
Okay, cool. And Amitai?
I've got 5.
Okay.
2 of them are the same.
That's fine. Yeah. We on either side of the journey, right? Yeah. We'll, once we hear who they are, we'll then make a sort of firmer decision. But it sounds like a style, as we were discussing in the break, sounds like a style question rather than just being incorrect. So
wait, I've got 5. Sorry, I'm wrong.
Okay. Well, Kaya, let's start with you then, since we're leveling points, and then we'll go to Amitai. So, Kaya, what is your route?
Let's start with the worst one. So, Mike Williamson played at Newcastle with Sol Campbell. He played at Arsenal with...
I forgot that happened.
Oh, yeah, I know. He played at Arsenal with Ashley Cole, who played at Chelsea with Andrei Shevchenko, who played at AC Milan with Rui Costa. Rui Costa played with Kaka at AC Milan. Kaka played with Angel Di Maria at Real Madrid. Angel Di Maria played with Michael Keane in 1 Premier League match at Manchester United.
That 14-15 season doing a lot of heavy lifting.
It did all the lifting. All the lifting.
Forgot about that season.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very fun. Okay, Amitai.
I don't think you can call that excellent, Steve. I think that's
enjoyable.
Disgraceful.
Hey, Sol Campbell's one season at Newcastle.
Yeah, that's true.
That's enjoyable for everyone. So, Amitai, 5.
So, mine is Mike Williamson played with Leon Best at Newcastle, who played with Nuno Gomez at Blackburn in 2012-13, who played with Rui Costa at Benfica between 2006 and 2008.
Very good.
Rui Costa played with David Luiz at Benfica, who played with Nuno Gomez at Benfica, who played with Scott Dan at Blackburn.
This is amazing.
Who played with Michael Keane at Blackburn on loan.
That's excellent.
That's so good.
Really enjoyable.
Yeah.
That's really enjoyable. Yeah, all fine. So it's 2 mentions of Nuno Gomez or Nuno Gomes or whatever. Excellent. Very enjoyable. Luke, 4 connections from you.
Yeah, I think the first half of mine I'm happy with. The second is a bit more boring. But Mike Williamson played at Newcastle with Fabrizio Colocini for a number of years. And Fabrizio Colocini played at AC Milan with Rui Costa. Colocini made 1 appearance in the 4-5 season. And then Rui Costa played at AC Milan with Shevchenko, who played at Chelsea with Frank Lampard, who played at Chelsea with Juan Mata, who played at Man United in that 14-15 season. So that was a bit more boring. But I was really struggling with that.
Well, the time pressure as well. Understandable. All right, JJ, 3.
I think I have 2 now.
Okay.
Kaya's given me a 2. But there's one bit where I can't remember where they played the same team, so just bear with me. So Mike Williamson at Newcastle, exactly, with Fabrizio Colocini, great player, AC Milan, who played with Rui Costa at AC Milan. Question mark. Angel Di Maria, they cross over, I think at somewhere. They do Real Madrid, maybe? No.
So Rui Costa and Angel Di Maria cross
Yeah,
over.
I think maybe it's AC Milan.
That'll be annoying.
When he was back at Benfica.
That is so stupid of me.
Sense.
I think you're right.
Is it Benfica?
Rui Costa goes back
and that
to
would
Benfica.
then be Angel Di Maria to Michael Keane in the, as already mentioned, 14-15
I had Wayne Rooney in between because that seems more
Yes.
legitimate than that one game, but I take Wayne Rooney out and it goes Williamson to Colocini to Costa to Di Maria to Keane. So I've done it.
I can confirm, JJ, that is a 2 connection route because that's exactly the route that I had when I did it in 2
They call me the best to ever do it.
But yes, to confirm, Mike Williamson played with Colocini in that 14-15 season. Newcastle, Colocini, AC Milan 04-05 alongside Rui Costa. Rui Costa, his final season as a professional footballer, the 07-08 season, he played with Angel Di Maria. Di Maria's only season at Man United, also 14-15, played in... Michael Keane got 1 appearance. 2, I think. 2 appearances.
I feel like this may be an example of where age has helped me, much like the turkey in the bin, I think. Knowing 90s football has helped me an awful lot there.
But no, a good, enjoyable game all round. Right, should we talk some Chelsea?
Yes. Chelsea 1, Sunderland 2. A weekend full of shock results saw Sunderland snatch a late winner at Stamford Bridge. Stamford, I think you'll find, Steve.
Yeah,
I never make mistakes, so this is fine. Both sides could have temporarily moved to second in the table with a win in this one, but it was the Black Cats who gave the Blues the blues. You see what he did there?
Yeah, that is clever. Yeah.
It was good. Since we have Luke, who is a Chelsea fan and a regular on the Straight Outta Cobham podcast. Is that how you pronounce Cobham?
Cobham, yeah.
Cobham. And Amitai, who oversees Chelsea content on site with us today. We thought we'd get into a deeper discussion on them. As we've not spoken that much about the reigning World and Conference League champions. They were very good in the Club World Cup, weren't they? So, Luke, when we were planning this show, you were saying how fans are still unsure about Maresca, and defeat to Sunderland will only add to that, surely.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like the perfect example of how kind of maybe from the outside people think Chelsea, well, maybe early in the season still, and they're not in the top 4, top 5, but they finished top 4 last year, but fans were still kind of not quite sold on Maresca. And I think this is kind of a perfect example of how thin a line he's treading in terms of he's basically only as good as his last result. I think everyone was on a massive high after beating Liverpool and then kind of dismantling a very, very poor Ajax side in midweek. But then back at Stamford Bridge and you lose 2-1 to a newly promoted side. And Sunderland have obviously done very well, but there's no way Chelsea should be expecting to do anything other than win that. And I think there's a couple of kind of facets to it. I think the style of play is the one that's used to the stick that's used to beat him, I think, most regularly. And that, again, Sunderland's a good example of this, where you're lacking a creative spark, and it can be a bit turgid at times, where you're just kind of almost, you have all your players in this U shape and you're going like right to left, not very quickly, not very incisively. And Sunderland, they played in the low block admirably, and this is something that teams have done very successfully against Chelsea since Maresca joined. And they really struggle to kind of find a way through it, and it just makes the crowd just turn. I don't know, maybe Stamford Bridge is a bit more impatient than other places. I feel like it's probably just football fans are impatient.
It has got that sort of feel to it. I think it comes from the back of all the Abramovich days, where the manager would get chopped after, like Ancelotti get done after winning the Premier League and FA Cup, right? And then the following year he went. So I think there's this thing that it becomes part of the narrative where you think Chelsea are impatient with it, but it's a completely different club since then.
Yeah,
sure.
But I think fans still kind of want the more excitement. And I think they're used to Chelsea fans, I think, are quite used to their, maybe save for that Ancelotti season where they won the league, where they were quite dominant. They're used to Chelsea teams being very strong at the back and then pretty good in transition, and with a sprinkling of like technically gifted players and sort of Eden Hazards and Juan Matas and the like. That's how Tuchel built a very successful Chelsea team for a very small period of time, but it was very successful and they were very good at that. Similar with Conte, right? They were good at the back and then, could hit you on the break, but fundamentally they were good at the back. And this Chelsea team aren't great at the back because they don't have loads of experience and they've kind of chop and change, and the goalkeeper situation is one that's kind of perplexed Chelsea fans and outsiders, because Robert Sanchez, I don't think is a top 6 kind of quality Premier League goalkeeper. But I think basically,
what does he do that makes him like that?
Well, he's a fantastic shot, or he can be a fantastic shot stopper, right? So he's not got this job by accident, he's not. But then his decision making, I think, coming for crosses, he can be quite in that bracket of quite flappy sometimes. He's not a dominating box presence, and then positioning at times. There's a couple of shots that beat him at the near post, or just where he rushes out, and he's got a couple of red cards in recent seasons. I just don't think Chelsea fans have ever been really sold on him. And his deputy, Philip Jorgensen, they bought from Villarreal at the start of last season, which was another one of those kind of meh signings. He hasn't, because they swapped around a bit last season, especially with the Conference League. He hasn't really hit the heights either, and a lot of fans were kind of clamoring for a new goalkeeping signing this season to kind of push on from top 4 to maybe challenging the top 3, or at least consolidating. But Chelsea, I think they're really high on Mike Penders, this Belgian kind of prodigy they signed from, I think it's Genk.
He's an FM scout signing.
Well, there you go. And he's on loan at sister club, as they like to call it, Strasbourg, this season in League One, doing pretty well. I think the plan basically is for him to come back and be the number 1, which I think is why you didn't really see Chelsea linked to many goals. They were linked to Mike Maignan at AC Milan for a bit. That was possibly a market opportunity that Chelsea looked to exploit, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the plan is for Penders, basically long term. But to sort of go back to Maresca, this is the style of play. I think there's this concern over set pieces as well, which we saw. Maresca, I mean, again, we're going back to long balls, right?
I've got a question I want to ask you about this, right? So would you rather watch the football that Chelsea do now, which is, in my mind, tell me if I'm wrong, is a lot of control, a lot of slow possession, but they've got control of counterattacks. They have that more under control than I think some other teams do. Yeah. Would you rather have that and try and create a goal through open play, or buy some big lads, smash a ball into the box and get wins?
I think I'm more in the wins kind of. I'm more. Be
careful what you wish for.
Chelsea fans will win. I think they had a little bit of the counter stuff under Pochettino. It was completely chaotic, but it was kind of quite fun.
Right.
I think it was like you'd watch Chelsea, you'd be like, you had no idea what's going to happen. Whereas now, as you were sort of saying, this control, I think fans get frustrated. And you're looking at this Chelsea team for the last few weeks, right? There's no Cole Palmer, and they've been doing pretty well without him, getting results, but you kind of miss that X factor.
He's the kind of one that can open up those defenses.
Yeah. And you sort of there's an argument, and if you're being hypercritical of Maresca, it's like he's sort of cheating in this system, right? By having control and then having like a player like Cole Palmer who can just unlock defenses and do. Without Cole Palmer, you've got good players João Pedro's played as a number 10, Enzo Fernandez, Andre Santos is kind of, learning the ropes in at Chelsea a little bit still, but they're just not to that level. And, you've got exciting wingers, and Maresca is really reliant on his wingers to go 1v1 and kind of create space, by going down the line or cutting back. And, Estevao is a great example of that, right? He's a proper bums off seats player. He's so exciting. And Pedro Neto's very good at that as well. But if you do what Sunderland were able to do a lot, and you're kind of able to double up on those wingers, they can't go down the line. They can't, beat a man and create space and get a ball into the box. They end up having to cut back, and then you get into this U shape where you go round and round, and it's a bit boring. And so
the horseshoe of doom.
Yes, well, yeah, exactly. I'm gonna steal that, the horseshoe of doom.
Oh yeah, well, I think I did it for an Arsenal video ages ago.
Sounds about right. Yeah,
or the donut of sadness, I think I called it. I can't remember. It caught on anyway. It seems to be a thing. Another thing I invented. Thanks very much. Amitai. Now, do you think Luke's telling the truth?
Yeah, so it's quite. I've kind of been waiting. Not that you were like that makes it sound like you were over talking. You weren't. But I've kind of been waiting to say a thing that I think a lot about Chelsea, which is that basically when these new owners took over Chelsea, there was this big sense amongst Chelsea fans of we've lost our Chelsea, and I spent a lot of time thinking about what Chelsea were as a club and what it is that people have thought they've lost. And the thing I could basically boil it down to was winning games of football. Because at every club, the thing that makes people happy is when you win loads of games. And it doesn't actually generally matter what the style of football is. But you look at West Ham, for example, where there was always this like sort of difference between like Moyes winning quite a lot of games of football and European trophies, and them having this concept of them playing like they're the West Ham DNA and the idea that you play football well, and that was always their thing. Chelsea never really had that because they were just relentless. They would win at least one of every 3 Premier League titles under Abramovich. They challenged really deep into each competition, and the thing that Chelsea have lost is they don't win things. They won the Club World Cup, they won the Conference League, but they don't win things that like matter.
Do you know what else? On exactly that same point is that I always thought the entire time that Abramovich, when they were in charge, really wanted like Guardiola.
Yeah,
they really wanted that set style of play. So so you can associate like a brand of Chelsea football with the winning as well.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to get those two to marry.
100%. And also they loved, Chelsea fans absolutely adored Ivanovic. They loved John Terry. They loved...
You need the characters and the leaders.
You need the characters and the leaders, but you also need someone who just pops up at a corner at the near post and heads the ball into the back of the net, which to me, Ivanovic did every week. Like the stats might tell me otherwise, but he did that every week as far as I could tell. And that's the sense of... I think that's the thing Maresca's always going to struggle against. And to be honest, any manager who comes into Chelsea where the aim isn't, or the outcome isn't winning the Premier League, I think they're going to struggle against that until like that generation of Chelsea fans who grew up under the Abramovich relentless winners kind of like probably have like a slight mindset change, or they fade out a little bit. That's always going to be their struggle, because a philosophy, Matt, we play nice football doesn't work for Chelsea fans. I think what works for Chelsea fans is we win games of football. Yeah, that's the long and short of it, basically. Yeah, because even when you're going for the set piece smashers, if you don't score from it, people start to hate it. Yeah, this is the thing you'll see. I think. Wait. I'm trying to read this. I was like, I didn't write that. Steve did, but I think. Look, what? I'm having a meltdown. I have hit my head now. I think. Oh, I see. Luke said this. I get it now. I understand with the writing of the terms. Something happened where my brain didn't work properly. Most people would see Cole Palmer as Chelsea's most important player, but you think it's someone else, Luke. Yeah, this maybe undercuts the point I was making about how important Palmer is to Chelsea's attack a couple of minutes ago. But I think Moises Caicedo is playing at an exceptionally high level. Yeah. And it's just like, again, this is almost like Maresca's like cheating a bit, because he's playing, this system with control, and he's pushing Cucurella really high up. And this season, Reece James is also kind of quite high as well. And you often have Enzo Fernandez, who isn't really playing as a number 6. He plays as like a number 8. But that just leaves kind of Caicedo and then the back 2 or 3. Right. But you can cheat with Caicedo because he's so good at kind of covering those kind of short to medium distances and winning the ball back. And his kind of game intelligence, his reading of the game is so high. And, it's I think something underrated about him. His distribution, his kind of ability to receive the ball from, if it's Robert Sanchez or one of the centre-backs, and kind of just use his body. So he has very low centre of gravity, can receive on the back foot, kind of like how I think Saka does it quite a lot.
where he receives it on the back foot and turns out.
Yeah.
It's almost like doing that and using his body to kind of roll the striker or attacking midfielder and then carry the ball. And then you kind of create that kind of false transition where he's beating his man. So then Chelsea stream forward and Caicedo can just play. He can play a crossfield pass, but he can often just give it to Cole Palmer or give it to Enzo Fernandez and they kind of take over the attacking responsibilities. But I think Chelsea have been quite lucky that they haven't had to play without Caicedo very much over the last few years, because I think Chelsea fans would tell you that he's been playing at this kind of elite level for 18 months or longer, maybe 2 years.
I remember he had a bit of a slow start.
So this is what happened, right? So he played, I think his first game, or one of his first games, West Ham, he conceded a penalty and it was like live on TV. It was a TV game. So I think the narrative was like, Caicedo's, he's a bust. He's 100 million waste of money. And he's been playing very well since then. I think it showed in the Nottingham Forest game just after the international break where he didn't start because I think he, traveling back from South America can be quite tough. And Chelsea looked awful in the first half, right? And then he comes on at half. Admittedly, there were 2 other changes at halftime as well, but he comes on at halftime, complete difference maker in terms of how Chelsea are able to kind of progress the ball upfield, but also then win it back. And he's kind of like it's again maybe an obvious comparison, but it's Kante-esque in how he just almost does the job of 2 players, kind of winning it back. Maybe a bit easy.
He's a step ahead of everyone. He reads. I think as soon as you see someone on the ball deeper, you can already see him moving where he thinks the ball will go. Which is what you're supposed to do when you're defending on FIFA. To wrap up, what do you think the minimum expectations from Chelsea fans are this season? As in fact, more I want to know really, so Maresca, if he doesn't get top 4, which is what they got last season, right? The first top 4. Did Chelsea stick with him, or do they think maybe this isn't as fun? Maybe some more smashers.
It's interesting because there was a time when it didn't look like Chelsea would get top 4 or 5 last year. They'd miss out on Europe, and there was even questions over Maresca's future, and the sort of the mood music out of the club was like, we're seeing this as a 2-year project. This because of the Club World Cup, right? They didn't have an opportunity to sack a manager because they couldn't really bring one in, although Real Madrid did do that, but Chelsea didn't want to do that. But then they kind of had a really good end to the season. They finished 4th, I think. 4th? 5th? Yeah, 4th. And so they got top 4. So it was like, we wouldn't sack him anyway. But now you're kind of in this situation where other teams look like they've got a bit stronger. Chelsea, there's some question marks. Palmer hasn't been fit. So if they don't finish top 4 or top 5, it's regression, right? That's kind of what you're getting at. So I think it will be a really pertinent question because kind of going back to this point where I don't think he doesn't have the fans on side completely.
What if they finish 5th?
Get an FA Cup win. If you get 5th in Champions League, right? Because I think we probably think Premier League will get the 5th spot.
All right, 6th.
So 6th in an FA Cup. I don't know. I think he'd be probably okay.
It's not success for Chelsea, is it?
Yeah.
No, but FA Cup's a proper trophy. That's a real.
Yeah, no, that's the thing.
So
you probably wait.
Amitai wouldn't sack him.
No, it's funny. You do weight that higher than the Club World Cup right now, but then in 15 years you probably don't. But if Chelsea win the FA Cup, it's a proper trophy at Wembley, and I think there's that match-going fan element as well.
Yeah,
which is that's where the tension really lives with Maresca. It's the people who actually go to the games and sit in the stadium. Those people would be more satiated by a FA Cup win.
That's so interesting. No, that's you think how football is now, especially because they're global companies now, basically.
Yeah. It's really hard to actually put legitimate predictions on Chelsea because they're such an inconsistent team at the minute because they're filled with so many young players because of the transfer strategy they've gone for. So they can be, hammering it, as you said, a poor Ajax side, but convincingly beating Liverpool. I know they got the last minute, but they deserved to win the game, and it was one of their most complete performances of the season, arguably most complete performance under Maresca. And they're doing that less than a month ago, and they look really poor against Sunderland, and you don't quite know what you're going to get. And I think when you've got that inconsistency combined with what is quite a sterile style of play at times, I can see why maybe match-going fans are against it. But the only way you can kind of go against that is by, like you say, winning trophies that people care about. And those Chelsea teams that you spoke about before, of Ivanovic and Chelsea and those kind of guys, they were consistent as hell. Yeah. They were consistently. It would be a shock if Chelsea went in the Champions League semi-finals or challenging for the title. Whereas at the minute, you've got no idea what you're going to get from the Chelsea team. Maresca makes lots of changes. I think I saw a match of the day. He's not fielded a single player over the age of 30 in his entire time as manager of Chelsea, which is amazing to me. And yeah, it's a combination of, I don't know if a managerial change will change that because you've got so many young players in the squad, so inconsistencies are kind of a part of that. But then again, maybe someone with a more exciting style of play kind of brings the buzz around the club a bit higher and people start feeling a bit more hot on it. But it's really hard to put your finger on what Chelsea are at the minute, which I think is what makes these analysis so difficult to do with Chelsea, because they're fascinating, but you don't quite know why, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yes, a fascinating point, whichever bit has been cut in there first.
I agree.
Yes, I agree. As we've established before, part of my agenda is to try and bring down Scottish football as much as possible. So I would like to talk now about Hearts versus Celtic, because something's happening in Scotland this year. It's very exciting. To anyone who doesn't support Celtic or Rangers, and if you've not seen this, Hearts are top of the league. And they're not just top of the league, they're top by, I think it's 8 points, which is it's pretty nuts. The last time a team outside of Rangers or Celtic won the league, and I can do this from memory, the last time a team, not Celtic or Rangers, won the Scottish Premiership was in 1985. When I was born, when Aberdeen won it. They haven't done very well since, especially not this season. But Hearts are top, and they just beat Celtic 3-1. Now, not only was I say this is a deserved win, but it's weird that it's happening now all of a sudden, but it's come as kind of like a perfect storm. I believe you've been following this story, Amitai, as a newsman.
Yeah, I worked with, we did an article on this last week, which was...
Is that Phil Hayes?
Phil Hayes'
it's
article.
So good,
yeah. And Phil Hayes, Hearts is a subject close to his heart. And he wrote absolutely brilliantly about it. And it is this perfect storm situation that you speak about, that in the... Celtic are having a bad season by their standards, or a slightly lower season by their standards. Rangers are definitely having a down season by their standards. And Hearts have, well, Tony Bloom, the I was going to call him the Brighton impresario, in a very like, Bill Kenwright used to be the musical impresario.
He was. He was.
Yeah, that is a word I've never heard anyone say in real life before.
Well, it's literally only used in musical context, isn't it? I think that's the definition of it. It has to be used in that. Anyway, let's not go into impresarios too much. But,
incorrect impresario.
But basically, yeah, the Brighton owner, Tony Bloom, has bought into Hearts, and therefore they have access to his data models, which, and this is without denigrating the Scottish Premiership, but I imagine in the same way the Premier League, most teams don't have the data models available to them that Brighton do.
Yeah.
In Scotland, teams definitely don't have those available to them. And they've made quite a few clever signings, right? And they, one of them, the Greek guy?
Yes.
Scored on Sunday.
Yeah.
And he's been amazing, hasn't he?
Yes. So they've signed a bunch of players from different places. I think one of them is Harry Milne's done very well. Kazilis is never. Claudio Braga has done fantastic. He's like joint top scorer in the league, but they also had players that were decent before, like Lawrence Shankland, who's joint top scorer with him just now. But exactly your point on the data stuff. So the Scottish football doesn't have as much money as the England. But is it the Premier League in England? Yeah, not Premiership. Premiership in Scotland, Premier League in England. And so even like recently, I know that at Aberdeen, they changed their scouting network maybe a few years ago. It wasn't that long ago that they were just using scouts who were going and finding things, maybe looking at Y-Scout, stuff like that. And then they're bringing in loads of analysts, all the different clubs trying to do that. But if you're like Livingston, you don't have enough money to really pay for lots of analysts. You don't have the same talent pool to try and find things. But this, like the Jamestown Analytics thing that they licensed to, I think it's Brighton, Saint-Gilloise, Hearts now. Was there another team on that list? I can't remember. Maybe there is. You can find out we're doing that. This gives Hearts a huge advantage because the way that algorithm works is how, Tony Bloom's made Como, there we go. Yeah, there you go. So like Tony Bloom's made a lot of money out of data, using algorithms and things like that to try and tell them where the best value is and stuff. And it's really exciting to watch it play out. But like Celtic fans would just be furious that they've not spent the money on players. Big debate after the game yesterday between like Chris Boyd, Chris Sutton, Neil Lennon, who were all just shouting at each other about the quality they brought in doesn't replace it. But what I like about it in Scotland that maybe you've all lost track of in the Premier League with your teams is that oh my God, I keep tapping things, is that in Scotland, these players, like Kazilis is playing in the Slovakian Premier League, I think. He's the winger that's playing really well. He's got like 4 goals and 3 assists or something. And Braga has got 5 goals, and he's a Portuguese forward who was playing in the Norwegian second tier. And so you can find value like that, these random players who become cult heroes, and then hopefully go into bigger things for themselves, that you don't get in the Premier League because the new signings are all like £40 million FM scout players.
Yeah. There's a real like, oh, who's that? And then you have to go on a Wikipedia deep dive. But yeah, it's really impressive.
I think what's also quite nice about the Hearts thing is, and this is outsider looking in perspective with absolutely no loyalty to any Scottish football clubs whatsoever, on a surface level, when a league's been won by 2 teams for 40 years, the idea that like the narrative of Hearts winning it would be absolutely wonderful. And then you marry it with like the clever thing. Because it's kind of like, when Leicester won the Premier League, there was like... It was
perfect storm.
Perfect storm, but also like it felt like kind of like pure narrative, because it was like, Jamie Vardy's just suddenly scored loads of goals in a row, and Kante's come in, he's been brilliant. But like, I think the thing with Leicester was, in retrospect, they probably didn't have like one key like clever thing they'd done that had made them suddenly really good. Whereas Hearts, there's like narrative plus like they might be establishing themselves. Because I think maybe people thought Hearts would be successful in 3 years, 5 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, actually they might win the league, and then what's the next step? Like that actually could be quite fun as well. I think it's just quite a nice perfect storm.
It's really fun. Well, like in the Premier League, it's always someone different who wins at the moment. But I remember, like in the 90s and the early 2000s, it was always Man United that were winning this thing. So it's if you
not always.
Well,
I guess a challenger from
gone this far in the podcast without mentioning Arsenal. Steve had to get them in somehow.
It almost always was.
It almost always was. Yeah.
I meant Blackburn in the
95. Yeah. Well, it's because it felt like that. So when you grow up in Scotland and follow Scottish football, it is just like one of those 2 teams, and almost everyone else is referred to as not being like when someone asks me who I support. This happens a lot. They say, "Who do you support?" And I say Aberdeen. Do you know what their next question is normally?
Well, who do you support in England?
No, they say, "Who do you really support?"
Oh.
Who's your real team? That's what they say every single time. It's like, it's for Aberdeen. It's really
So who do you really support there?
I support Aberdeen.
Newcastle.
Do you think this like Hearts kind of data thing will have like, is it sort of like a sliding doors moment for Scottish football? Do you think? Will it show outside investors, because all the multi-club is very a la mode right now, and does it show like, we can really have success?
I've thought for a long time Scotland is just like a gold mine waiting for someone to come in, because there's only 2 teams who are there. So you've got those 2 clubs at a weird precipice, whereas very shortly, because they're doing so badly in Europe, it could be that we start losing Champions League spots, so that all comes down. So if you can do it right and get into those spots, there's a huge amount of money you get from the Champions League. So your investment in someone like Hearts could suddenly earn you an awful lot more money. You see it in England, Wales technically, but like Wrexham and like Birmingham, all these teams that are getting investment at real low down. If you invest in so you can go in at 500 grand to a real lower league team. 8 years later, if you do everything right, you might get up to Championship, something like that, and then you make your real investment back. So your return is massive. But in Scotland, you've got huge teams like Hibs and Hearts are huge teams. So basically, there is investment coming into the league now. So in terms of it being a watershed moment.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think the game has to modernise in Scotland, and it has to utilise these things. But trying to attract the players is one option. But you see so many move on to bigger things. Like in recent times, you've had like Lewis Ferguson going from Aberdeen to Bologna. You've had other players going to Italy, doing really well. So there's definitely a market, and I think it's great. And you should all watch Scottish football rather than your free kick, set piece, corner league that you all watch.
How do they score in Scotland?
It's just with magic. They have the ball, then the ball is in the net. Especially, yeah. Anyway, so that's it. That's actually all we have time for this week. So I want to say thank you to Luke.
Thank you for having me. I
didn't ask you, but you're very welcome. Amitai, thank you.
Steve, thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Steve. I have nothing to do with this. I just got asked to be here. And Kaya.
Nice one. Thank you.
It's good that you remain here.
Cheers.
And of course, thank you to Steve for inviting everyone to be here.
You're most welcome.
And he put all the script together and he did all the bits. So he's the most important one. And then, well, not as important as you, obviously, listeners. You're the most important. And the viewers. And Kaya and I shall be back recording on Wednesday. I found out this morning. I'll probably be told that before, but I forgot about that.
100% happen.
You'll get it on Thursday when we are joined by a man temporarily freed from the scattergram in which I imprisoned him. It's Dr. Marc Guehi. So you don't say tunes, do you? You just tap on the podcast app. Goodbye.